My name is Neil Brown, Executive Director of the Controllers Council, and before I introduce our expert speaker and partner sponsor, let me share some brief housekeeping items. First, we'll have Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please use your GoToWebinar control panel to ask our expert questions. If we do not get to your question, we can answer it post-webcast. Next, there'll be a handout template for building a business case for accounting automation in the handout row of your control panel for you to download. And finally, you'll receive a link to this webcast via email in the next 24 hours, so no need for notes or screenshots. With that, I'm very pleased to share with you our partner sponsor, Leapfin, is the accounting automation solution that rejects the status quo of a painful and unpredictable month-end close. Leapfin helps finance and accounting teams automatically transform messy transaction data into beautiful, accurate journal entries so they can close quickly and reliably. Trusted by Canva, Reddit, and SeatGeek, Leapfin is a perfect fit for high transaction volume businesses, especially subscription, e-commerce, and marketplace models. I'm very pleased to introduce our subject matter expert, Ray Lau, founder and CEO of Leapfin. Prior to Leapfin, Ray managed finance operations at Zynga, where he owned business operations, financial planning, and budgeting through Zynga's rapid growth and IPO. As CEO of Leapfin, he has seen many high-growth companies successfully build business cases for accounting automation, and he's excited to share best practices and tips he's picked up along the way with you. Ray, welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Neil.
Take it away.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind introduction. We're very, very excited to be working with Controller Council on this webcast. And as kind of Neil indicated, we'll be covering quite a lot of topics today. But don't worry, as Neil mentioned as well, we will be sending out the recording, so no worry about taking notes and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff that we'll be covering. At Leapfin, I really had the great fortune to be working with a lot of finance and accounting leaders. Many of them actually started off as accounting managers, and now they are controllers, VP of finances, and CFO of their respective companies. And I really kind of saw firsthand on how they're thinking about building a business case when they want to buy an automation solution like a Leapfin and convince their stakeholders and leadership on why such tool is needed. And I'm gonna share everything I've learned from them, and from anywhere from when they're even ready to buy a solution to build a convincing business case to actually a successful rollout. And hopefully some of these lessons will be beneficial to all of you. But first, let's talk about why accounting needs automation at the first place, right? In the past, it feels like things were just so much simpler. Collecting like informations and doing all the work to close. It just requires so much less wrangling of information, if you will. Collecting invoices or receipts and refunds. Usually it's just come from one source, right? Maybe a couple of sources. But it just feels like today, revenue accounting is just so much more complicated and so much more messy, and just nowhere near as straightforward as it once was. So why is that? Like, why is it so much more complicated? One of the biggest challenges is that our transaction data is being collected in so many different disparate data sources and systems, right? Transactions are processed through multiple payment providers, in multiple different countries with a variety of entitlement. And businesses today are just more complex than ever. We are no longer just processing purchases, everything that go along with that, like refunds and discounts and whatnot. through a single source, like a cash register, a store from, or invoice from your AR department, for example. Today, in this kind of a digital world, we are purchasing through websites, mobile apps like Apple and Google, buy now and pay later providers like Klarna, but we still have to invoice. Like all of these is kind of compounding through, essentially, you are probably working with a variety of providers and vendors. And these data are ultimately stored in many, many different locations in all different kind of format. There is no standardization whatsoever. So when it comes to preparation to the close, aggregating all that data from these different sources just become incredibly daunting and complex and time-consuming. And on top of that, most of our businesses are all basically operating in many different geos, different countries that come with different tax codes and different currencies. You're probably offering different solutions like subscriptions or gift cards that needs to be amortized over time. And there's just so much more manual and tedious steps that are required to accurately account for all of these things and balance and reconcile, right? And prepare the financial statements. And what I just described is all actually ideal candidates for automation. And if all of what I just described sounds familiar, you're actually not alone. Because a recent study released by Gartner actually showed that over 73% of accountants are reporting that their workloads has increased because of new regulations, new complexities, and compound that with the recent economic volatility. Over 80% of accountants are showing that the demand for their work has greatly increased. And by the way, what makes it worse is more, right? The industry is actually facing a much broader macro challenge. Professional accountants and auditors are actually leaving the profession. There are fewer and fewer, individuals are entering the workforce. And you're also facing a lot more increased scrutiny from regulators, right? It's just kind of a tough outlook if all of these trends continues. And all that considers like challenges with data, business complexities, staffing shortages, increased regulations and scrutiny. The truth is, and reality is, the industry is ripe for automation. And I'm sure this is not breaking news to you. I have been in countless conversations with corporate accounting teams and finance teams. They are already doing the work to explore automations for their organizations. Some are well into the adoption phase. Some are still kind of in the education and exploration phase. And what we're seeing is that everything is on the table. Teams are being tasked with direct initiatives. Where can we use automation to be faster, to be more efficient, and just be more effective? The teams that we're speaking to, they want to adopt this solution for good reason. It helps in many ways, as it kind of outlined on this slide, but there's actually many things that automation can help with that's not necessarily highlighted here. I actually still remember one of our customers, they told me before they bought Leapfin, they would spend 20 business days to close every single month because they were burning midnight oils, right? These accounting teams learn how to write SQL statements because there's so much data. So they had to write SQL statements, pulling all these data from their data sources and internal systems. They learned BI so that they can, manipulate all this data. And this process take them 20 business days every single month. And by the time they're done, they get a few days to breathe, but then it starts all over again. So how do you get out of this? Like, how do you get out of this Excel hell, right? And this is really where automation comes in, because much of the things that they were doing, pulling data, cleaning up the data, reconciling the data, in reality is perfect for automation. And if you can automate all these things, you can actually focus on what really, really matter to the business. And that customer that I mentioned that took 20 days to close, now they close on day 2. When implemented well, automation really gives teams exponential return